And so it's important that we look at all those options, or whether it's a tax credit for every job that's hired, things like that. But you start getting risky when you talk about forgivable loans. I think taxpayers are going to want a system that's still accountable. And there are systems in place right now. For instance, in Barron County, there is a group out there that does give out loans, or low interest, or sometimes even no interest loans. And because if your business is successful, your loan should not be forgiven. You should have to pay that debt back. And so it's a kind of a fine balance there, but I think you're on track when you start talking about trying to find ways to get businesses to grow or to find money that they can invest.
So neither of you, if I were to get a loan or a grant for $20,000 and my stipulation was to create 50 new jobs in 2 years, even though that would be a good thing for the economy, neither of you is in favor of forgiving that loan, even though it's boosted the economy. I mean, that's what it sounded like. You sound like you both were in agreement, and if you are, that's fine. I just wanted to double check. I was trying to make sure I was understanding. Okay.
Well, there has to be accountability for investment.
Okay.
And, you know,
so the accountability would be creating 50 jobs in 2 years.
Right, but you're not going to do that with $20,000. I mean, those numbers are pie in the sky.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, ma'am, in the peach.
Healthcare, education, and jobs are all very important issues to me. But there is one issue that's very dear to my heart in this district, and that is the sand mines. And I am very distressed about what that is doing to our environment. Just south of US 8 in Arlen, there are pits the size of a small Grand Canyon. And how is that ever going to be replenished and restituted for the people that want to live here? It's ruining this state of ours. And what I would like to know is, do either of you favor a moratorium on any more sites? Because I know that there are a lot of them being proposed. And I want to know if there would be in favor of a moratorium on any more new sites of mines, and perhaps what are the precautions that are being taken to safeguard our groundwater, our streams, and our ponds.
Excellent question.
And our air quality.
Yes.
Yeah, I've fortunately been able to travel around to a lot of different sites where private landowners are currently in contracts with extracting some of that sand. I've toured a lot of those sand mines. And actually, I just got to see a project just now where there's actually a sand company that's taken the initiative and is actually producing a conveyor belt that will haul sand. So there's no longer any trucking, no longer need to tear the roads, and to eliminate some of those other problems as well. Some of the sand mines are taking the initiative, not all of them, and we do have bad apples, and that's why we do need basic regulations for those things. But a lot of sand mines now are taking initiative and are voluntarily paying stipends to certain townships so they can recover some of those costs. So I do not support necessarily a moratorium on stopping all mines, because I don't believe I, as a legislator in Madison, get to tell all of you in here what you can or cannot do with your personal property, and that involves whether it means selling your lumber, selling the sand or minerals, things like that. But no, your concern is valid, and I do believe the state should be helping counties address some of these issues and empowering townships to take control of them. If the township doesn't want to mine, that's fine, and that's up to that township. And if you're not for that, I would express that to your township board, and they can stop that from ever happening. So I would encourage that process happening at the local level. And like again said, I do understand your concern, and maybe we do need to look into more ways in terms of regulating that, or making sure it's accountable, it's open, and that we can be assured. But as you're right, there will be physical differences in the land after the mines.
All right, excellent. Stephen, your turn.
I think that if there's going to be a moratorium, it should be imposed by local elected leaders. And I think that the legislature in Madison should stay out of it. What's happening is in our neighborhoods, our local elected leaders are the people that are most affected by it. I know that there's been proposals to take that power away and put it in the Capitol. That doesn't work for me. Now, one of the things I think, there's two things I think that we should be studying as a state because it just doesn't apply to Barron County. And that would be the impact of fugitive sand dust on healthy young lungs. I'm not worried about my lungs, I'm an older guy. But when you look at the New Albany school so close, and the air filtration, and not knowing, I think we should do some scientific research and find out just exactly what's going on. The other one is, we're only looking at each mine individually. We're not looking on the collective impact on groundwater. And I think that should be studied also. We need our groundwater. Wisconsin exports clean water every day in its agricultural products. And we need to preserve our groundwater for the future use.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. All right. Yes, sir, White.
More of a statewide issue. I'd like to hear both of you speak up on the pros and cons that you feel are important when it comes
Is it something related to
So,
practice?
on a little bit lighter note, perhaps, on your issue on sand, I was just reading that
Okay,
China has the whole Gobi Desert of sand, and it's already dry, they're not prepared to dry it, and they claim they can ship it over here a whole lot cheaper than we can produce it, so we might be out of the sand business in a few years.
Go ahead, did you got it.
Right to work state.
Pardon me?
Becoming a right to work state.
Okay, right to work state. All right. Let's see, that would be starting with Stephen Romaine, right? It says he, okay, Stephen, sorry.
I'm against Wisconsin becoming a right-to-work state. I think there's a misnomer in that. I think it always becomes a right to work for less. People have the right to organize and to negotiate with their employers. Now, if an employer is doing their leadership correctly, the union will never form. But, you know, you got to remember where unions started. They started in coal mines because the coal mining companies treated their mules better than they treated their workers. If the mule died, they had to buy a new mule. If the worker died, they got hired the next guy in line. And, you know, there's a lot of good companies that are not unionized that care for their employees, and yet there's organizations that are the other way. And that's market forces at work, let the free economy work.
Thank you, Stephen.
Sure. Well, if you not having a right to work state is not letting the market forces work. Now, saying we want to have a right to work state doesn't mean we hate unions or will not allow unions. Allowing a right to work state means that you can't not be hired just because you don't want to join that union. So what right does the government have to say that you must join a union to participate in a certain job? That's your right as an individual. Now, if that union has benefits and qualities that they can prove that is of value to you, then you can join it. But you shouldn't be forced in one, you shouldn't be forced out of one, and it's your right to freely choose that, and that's what right to work does. It has nothing to do with dissolving public unions or dissolving private unions. It's allowing people the choice to do that. So it's important that we understand that when we're talking about this issue. It doesn't mean it's anti-union or not. You're still allowed to be in a part of a union, but it's your personal free choice to do that.
Thank you.
Big difference between closed and open shops too. But as far as unions go, closed shops are open shops. Closed shops, you have to be a union member. Open shop, you don't have to be a member. You can still work there and you represent them. That's another thing with closed and open shops.
Yes, sir, in the back.
We've been told that the tools will be put in the toolbox for local government and the school districts to work properly. But now there's money funded into the charter school system, which is right, that's hurting the local school district. And we just can't have a huge view on charter schools and where funding is going from the state to the private schools.
Okay, Romaine, you start on this one.
Sure. There's a lot of misconceptions when we start talking about school funding, and unfortunately it's being perpetrated by a lot of different candidates that are running for office. Now, like Rice Lake High School has a charter school. There are no students attending there on a voucher. I think the base of the issue we're talking about, a lot of the nuts and bolts comes down to is vouchers and how that happens. We do not have our local school money going to vouchers in voucher schools in Milwaukee. This ad here says it does. It's false. And so it's important to understand the difference there. And now the charter school at the Rice Lake High School is funded based on a grant and some local money that is decided by the school board whether they want it or not. And so it's very important to remember the difference there. Now, I do support charter schools or Montessori schools or voucher schools or Catholic schools or any school that may be necessary in order to educate a child so they have the same opportunity regardless of where they live. And so we need to take it case by case. We need to make sure it's accountable. I find it very hard to deny some of the same opportunities that I've had. I was able to attend a K through 8 Catholic education, and just because your parents don't have the money to that, if you want that option, then you should be allowed that option. But right here in this district, voucher schools do not have any effect on our district, and it's false to be asserting that otherwise.
Stephen, and then I think we have time for just one more question, and then we need to get right to closing statements.
Charter schools that are driven by a school board are different than charter schools that do not have any public control. And it is not right to think that money going to voucher schools do not affect our school funding. You can't spend the same dollar twice. And every dollar that goes to private education in Milwaukee isn't going to any place else in the state. And our students are being denied opportunities to learn, and we're paying more in our taxes than we otherwise would if money was coming to our schools. I mean, they would not be able to spend more. And if they had more money, you can't spend it. It only goes one place, and that's reducing our property taxes. And there's no accountability. I mean, there was a school in Milwaukee that closed their doors in the middle of the night in December, left their students on the curb the next day, and the owners moved to a gated community in Florida. And nobody wanted to go and get our money back for us. There's just something wrong with that.
Okay, before we move to the next question, I can kind of see Romaine shaking his head. Why don't you both quickly give your best reason for why you think it's, Stephen, you think it's using tax dollars that are going to the Milwaukee schools, and Romaine, you're saying because it doesn't go to the local Rice Lake school, therefore it doesn't come out of our tax dollars. Is that correct?
No. What happens is the local money that's assessed here in the 75th district for our schools here do not go to voucher schools in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And so this ad here, supporting Steve Smith, says he doesn't know why we're taking local tax dollars out of our public schools and giving them to unaccountable private schools in Milwaukee. And then during his Wisconsinite interview, he said he's for keeping vouchers in Milwaukee. And so we need to make sure we're clear in this issue and that we understand vouchers are allowing inner city students who are not wealthy, but who are poor and under 185% of the poverty level, receive the same education that I received and that Steve Smith received at a private school as well. And so to deny that to other children, while both of us up here were able to go to those schools, I think is totally wrong.
Stephen,
State tax dollars are going to those schools in Milwaukee. That is money that otherwise would be funding public schools in Wisconsin, some of which would come to our public schools, which would lower the money coming out of our billfolds.
so like the state personal income tax, and Romaine is saying the local property tax.
Right.
Okay,
I mean,
so state dollars are.
Right, but if they were coming here, our real estate taxes, our property tax would be less.
Would be less,
And we'd
okay.
have more spending money in our pocket.
Okay. Boy. Some of the questions we may have to look at Janet and Dane for some of them. I'll go to you, ma'am, and then we better do closing speeches.
So, Mr. Smith, am I understanding it correctly that you believe in a free society parents should not have the right to choose the best educational setting for their children, but that the state or federal government should dictate to that parent exactly where their child should go to school? And Romaine, do you agree?
Okay.
Oh, that's loaded.
Since the question is directed in this case to Stephen, I think I'm going to let him respond first, and then we can have.
Well, for one thing, no one forces anyone to live in any particular area. And yes, there are private schools, and I am a product of private school education. My parents were able to pay for my education. We're talking tax dollars. This is all our money, and it should be going to public schools where we have accountability. We can see how they're spent. As soon as it goes to a private school, we lost how it's being spent and controlled. Just the way it is.
All right, Romaine.
Sure. Well, I don't understand within the last month, when we both interviewed on Wisconsinite television, that Mr. Smith supported keeping voucher schools in Milwaukee as they have been for the last 20 years, and now he's here before you today saying he opposes those same schools. So it's either one way or the other. And so to say that only Milwaukee kids are deserving of these vouchers and not any other kids in any other failing schools around the state is also wrong. And so there are caps on this program. School districts aren't allowed to lose more than 1% of their student population. This is not making or breaking school districts. It's allowing poor inner city children the chance to succeed and receive the same education that both of I have received up here at this table. And so it's important that we remember these facts as we talk about this issue, because it does get emotionally charged, because we all care about our kids and we all care about our schools. But we need to make sure that regardless of where these children live, they get the same opportunity that both Steve and both I have received, irregardless of where I have to send them. As your state representative, I don't care if I have to ship kids 100 miles somewhere else. If that means they feel safe and they're in an environment where they can learn and have a chance to succeed, because education is the great equalizer. And we must make sure that all kids, regardless of where they live, are able to receive that same education.
Okay. I want to thank you both. Yeah, Steve and I, what I was thinking is that since we've got really on a tight time schedule, I want you to be able to respond. Could you possibly work some rebuttal that you wanted to respond to in that 4-minute closing statement?
I got 2 questions left.
Well, we're going to have to, that's going to have to go
Have to
for the
catch
next
them out
2
there.
candidates, just because of our time schedule. But just save those. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And 4 minutes, and you start, Stephen. Thank you both, by the way.
I would like to remind everyone that in Milwaukee property taxes are funding part of those vouchers and not state tax dollars. In conclusion, since taking office, I have put the issues of northwestern Wisconsin first. I have created relationships with both Democrats and Republicans in the state capitol, and I believe this is what being an elected official is all about. It's about relationships. It's about putting people before politics. It's about working with everyone for the common good. It's about putting all of my lifetime experience to good use representing you in the state capitol. I have never seen a party label solve a problem. I know that problems are only solved when people are able to come together and establish common ground. In 2012, I spoke about how, if elected, I would put the people I represented ahead of party line politics. I also said we needed a legislator who could find the devil in the details, not just another slick-talking politician. After my first 2 years as your representative, I have delivered on these promises. I have voted for good ideas that help the people I represent, and I've done so by making sure that every stakeholder has a seat at the table when ideas are being shaped. It's no accident I achieved the most bipartisan voting record in the state assembly last session. I ended up with the most bipartisan voting record because of the input of people just like everyone here tonight at this forum. It's an honor and a privilege to serve as your representative, representing more than 57,000 people. I know I'm not in this alone, and I look forward to continuing to be your voice in the assembly. Thank you.
Yes, again, I want to reiterate as well, thank you so much for being here. It's you people that are carrying that show up to these events that show that we can really work through these problems as we move into the future. And as you know, Wisconsin has faced some serious issues over the last few years and will continue to face them, but I am assured by you attending here tonight that we can work with them together. Federal regulation and overreach, an aging population, an overbearing tax burden, and a breakdown of the family and our traditional values will continue to pose problems for us into the future. But again, I am reaffirmed that the good people of Wisconsin can overcome them as long as we have representatives in government who are effective and who will be willing to be honest with us about the facts. There are 2 of us up here tonight. One of us will keep repeating the line over and over again that he is putting people before politics. The same person will tell us that vouchers will destroy our public schools, He will deny inner city children the opportunity to succeed, yet he was able to enjoy that private education. One of us will tell you that he will fight for your values in Madison, yet votes no and walks away from a budget without offering one single amendment, not one. One of us will tell you that they oppose Act 10, but they will offer zero solutions how they would come up with $3.6 billion. One of us up here will tell you that they will fund state programs with printed federal money, yet offer no ideas on what to do once that money disappears. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not leadership. This is political gamesmanship. It's dishonest and it's misleading, and it has no place for a public servant. I promise you here tonight that I will work hard every single day in office to ensure that the people of the 75th District have an honest representative who will guide our state into a prosperous future not only for us, but for future generations as well. Thank you, and I would be honored to receive your vote on November 4th.